will cancel out, and you'll be left with unity here. So the magnitude here and the magnitude on the left hand side, they will be the same. So this entire part, the product of these two terms, is the minimum phase part. So the minimum phase system transfer function and h of z will have the same magnitude response. So reflecting a zero into its conjugate reciprocal location does not change the magnitude response of a system. Okay. So let us consider a 0 z equal to r into e to the power j theta inside the unit circle r less than 1. So r is less than 1. So we will write the poles and zeros in the polar notation like this. So you know that h of z can be written like this. This is the general formula, which I have already taught you. So all of you know that you can write the bottom formula, everyone. So you can now write, is it visible? Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you can write the zeros and the poles in the polar notation, and you can try to replace z with e to the power j omega. So you will have this form. So we are saying that reflecting a zero into its conjugate reciprocal location does not change the magnitude response of the system. So let us explore how this minimum phase system will have the minimum delay property. So if you see angle of HEJ omega, the phase lag from the previous formula, this is the formula, right? From here I can calculate angle. This is He of j omega. I have written h of z in terms of e to the power j omega. Now I can calculate angle and the group delay. So we are supposed to analyze the phase lag and the group delay and prove that the minimum phase system will have minimum phase lag and minimum group delay. So we can write in general, given pk poles and zk like zeros. So where zk is written like this, qk into e to the power j theta k, and poles are written as rk into e to the power j phi k. So we can write out equations. These equations are also like some things that which I've discussed with you. So you can get this tan inverse imaginary part by real part, tan inverse imaginary part by real part. Okay. And the group delay can be obtained from this by differentiating with respect to omega. So for a single zero, we are going to analyze the case where we have a single zero. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So for a single zero, we will use this formula and we will arrive at these formulas, these two formulas. Okay. So this is the case when you have a single zero r into e to the power j theta, and we are going to reflect this single zero to the conjugate reciprocal location. So the angle will remain the same, only its magnitude will change to 1 by r. Okay. Suppose we have a zero here, I'm going to reflect it here. Angle remains the same, theta. Only the length changes. R becomes 1 by r. Okay. So let us see. So we will have phase lag and group delay like this. So here you can, for phi, you are writing theta here. So everything else remains the same. And similarly here, we are using this part after some simplification. There is a single zero only. Is this clear to everyone? You're able to see the formula? You're able to understand? We are only analyzing the case of a single zero. So this is the general case where you have multiple poles and zeros. Now I am simplifying these formulas for phase lag and for group delay like this for a single zero. Some amount of simplification is done here. Okay. So just be a little careful. It is not identical to this. Some amount of simplification is happening. Should I wait? Shall I move ahead? Everyone? You have already seen this formula. There's nothing new here. Huh. Okay. So is this slide visible to everyone? Yes or no? Please let me know.
Yes, sir.
So yeah. So I'm going to explain based on this slide. So we reflect the 0 z equal to r into e to the power j theta to its conjugate reciprocal location. So the magnitude becomes 1 by r and the angle remains the same. And this will go outside the unit circle. Suppose the 0 was here, then it will go here. So if you do this in the equation shown above, then the phase lag will increase because the denominator decreases. Okay. So this means that any 0 which is outside the unit circle will cause a phase lag to increase. So you can see the denominator for the phase lag equation. You see this equation. This is the phase lag equation. So here you have R. If you take a small example, suppose R was equal to 0.8 and you did a 1 by R here, then the 1 by R would be larger, isn't it? 1 by 0.8. So denominator increases if R is 0.8. Now suppose R was equal to 1 by 0.8, then this will become 0.8. That means denominator shrinks. So if denominator shrinks, the phase lag increases. Denominator will shrink when R is greater than the unit circle. That is what is written. So phase lag increases because denominator decreases. So if you see here this diagram, is it visible for all of you? The phase lag is this angle, beta in, beta out. So this is your angle theta. This is a 0 placed inside the unit circle. And right now you are looking at the conjugate reciprocal location, which is Z out. So this is Z in, that is 0 inside the unit circle. This is Z out, 0 outside the unit circle, and the conjugate reciprocal location. So here the phase lag was beta in. Here the phase lag is beta out. Beta out is definitely greater than beta in. This is what we had already studied. We already saw in the previous classes that when you have a 0 outside the unit circle, it causes increase in phase lag. So the plot of phase lag versus frequency, if you see here, we are plotting minus psi omega, that is the unwrapped phase, negative of that. So if you are plotting that, this is for the dotted line is for the case where the 0 is outside the unit circle, and the solid line is for the case when the 0 is inside the unit circle. So you see the phase lag is definitely lower as compared to the dotted line. Similarly, for the group delay, if you take the negative derivative of this, then you are going to, this is already minus psi omega, so you just have to take d by d omega. So then you are going to get the group delay like this for the 0 corresponding to remaining outside the unit circle, and you are going to get a group delay curve like this for a solid line which is corresponding to the 0 line inside the unit circle. So the phase lag and the group delay both are small or reduced for 0 inside the unit circle, and therefore minimum phase systems which have zeros inside the unit circle, they have lower phase lag and lower group delay. Okay, so this is the case where the 0 z in is equal to 0.8 e to the power j pi by 4. So the conjugate reciprocal 0 is 1 by 0.8 e to the power j pi by 4. Is this clear? The slide is clear? This is very important because this gives you an idea why it is called minimum phase. Why is the system having poles and zeros called minimum phase? Poles and zeros inside the unit circle is called minimum phase. This is a very important idea. Many people they don't know. Your seniors, I don't know how many of them know about this, but this is not really covered in many textbooks, so not many people know. So whatever I'm teaching, pay attention and absorb. Okay, fine. Are you following everyone? I'm going very, very slow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So same thing, whatever I just said, it is summarized in this slide. Beta out is less than beta in. That angle is less than beta in. So or rather greater than beta in. So reflecting a 0 outside the unit circle at its conjugate reciprocal location increases the group delay. And we can also conclude that a minimum phase system has a minimum phase lag algebraically and the minimum group delay among all systems with the same magnitude response. So if you see h of z and h1 of z into 1 minus a z inverse, they both have the same magnitude response, isn't it? See the sentence. H of z and h1 of z or h min of z, this entire product of these two terms. Can you all see my cursor? All of you can
Yes,
see my
sir.
cursor? Yeah. So if you see this, so this particular term, the product of these two terms, h1 of z into 1 minus a z inverse, this is the minimum phase system. So this part and this part, they will have the same, this part of the right hand side and the left hand side, they will have the same magnitude response. So given two systems with the same magnitude response, you will have a situation where uh, so you will have a situation where they have the same magnitude response, but the minimum phase system has the minimum phase lag and minimum group delay. That's what I want to emphasize. So you can write down if you want. This is the summary slide. So given two systems with the same magnitude response, you would prefer the system which has the minimum phase lag and the minimum group delay. That means effectively you are going to prefer a system which has all zeros inside the unit circle. Poles are always supposed to be inside the unit circle for a causal and stable system. Okay, fine. Once you are done, please let me know. So we have covered this chapter in great detail, and I have slowly taught many concepts in this chapter. I hope that all of you are following and you are reading as I have been teaching. So please look at some examples also and the problems. So you can look at Prokis Manolakis. It has these ideas. So you can read from that book. And Oppenheim Schaefer also has this chapter. So everyone, you are done. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
So then we have two other systems. We have talked about minimum phase. Then we have two other systems which are called maximum and mixed phase systems. So a causal and stable system with a rational system function is called maximum phase if all its zeros are outside the unit circle. So you have already seen that if you have a zero outside the unit circle, it increases the phase lag. Okay. So such a system will have higher phase lag. So it is called a maximum phase system if all its zeros are outside the unit circle. So if it is causal and stable, then all poles has to be inside the unit circle, but zeros can be outside the unit circle. That is allowed. So such a system is having a problem that it has maximum phase lag. A system with an arbitrary h of z is maximum phase if it is causal, stable, and h of z is not equal to 0 for z less than 1. That means it has no zero inside the unit circle. Mod z less than 1 is inside the unit circle. H of z is not equal to 0 there. That means there is no zero inside the unit circle. All zeros are placed outside the unit circle. This is another way to write the definition of a maximum phase system. And if the system has some zeros inside the unit circle and some zeros outside, then it is called a mixed phase system. Okay. So let us see an example. So consider a minimum phase system with system function h mean of z given as 1 minus a z inverse into 1 minus b z inverse. So you can write this polynomial like this. You can expand it. You can do a multiplication term by term, and you can expand it like this. So you have something like ab into z to the power minus 2, and then you have some term with z to the power minus 1, then z to the power 0, like that you have terms, right? So a is restricted to be between minus 1 and plus 1. Similarly, b is restricted to be between minus 1 and plus 1. So the system has two zeros inside the unit circle at z equal to a and z equal to b. So if you reflect 1 0, you will get a mixed phase system. So this is a minimum phase system. Both zeros are inside the unit circle. You will reflect 1 0 outside the unit circle. So you can get something like this. Either you can reflect A or you can reflect B. So you'll have two mixed phase systems after reflection. Okay. You're reflecting the poles and zeros means you are doing 1 by A and 1 by B. This is the term for reflecting A outside the unit circle, and this is the term for reflecting B outside the unit circle. And if you reflect both zeros outside the unit circle, you obtain the maximum phase system, which is like this. It is having both 1 by A and 1 by B here. So you can expand it again. So you get something like this. So this is the maximum phase system. So if you compare this equation with this equation, you see what has happened. H max z is the reverse polynomial of h min z. That means you can formally express it as h max z is related to h min z like this. So it is showing you that the zeros of h min z are, which were previously inside the unit circle, are reflected outside the unit circle. That means you are doing 1 by z here. If you do h min of 1 by z and you multiply it by z to the power minus 2, because it is having two poles, or rather two zeros, so z to the power minus 2 comes here, then you get a maximum phase system. Is this clear? We'll understand it graphically also by looking at the plots of magnitude response, phase lag, and group delay for each of these three systems. We have two mixed phase systems, one maximum phase system, and another one which is the minimum phase system. So you see, this is the plot. So the magnitude response is the same for all four systems. Okay, this is something important to understand. For all four systems, the magnitude response remains the same, but the phase response and the group delay, they all change. So if you calculate the angle, there will be discontinuities. So let us not worry about this. This is principal phase value. Let us worry about the continuous phase function, the unwrapped phase function. This is minus psi omega. So if you see here, the maximum phase system has the maximum phase lag. The plot is the highest. Okay, it has the maximum phase lag, whereas this has the least phase lag here. This is for the minimum phase system. Similarly, group delay. The maximum phase system has the higher group delay here. Dotted line shown with max. All of you can see my cursor, I think. The mixed phase systems, they are lying in the middle between maximum phase system and minimum phase system. The minimum phase system has the least group delay, it has the least phase lag, and therefore it is preferable. Is this clear, everyone? All of them have the same magnitude response. So this is the summary. So is this clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So with this, we come to an end of this chapter. Before I close, some closing comments, just to generalize whatever we have discussed just now in this example. So we can generalize for any polynomial with complex or real coefficients. So given a minimum phase system like this, we can obtain the conjugate reverse polynomial, which is the maximum phase system, by writing out the polynomial in the reverse way. So if you see an is associated with z to the power minus n, now here an is associated with z to the power 0. Similarly, a of n minus 1 is associated with z to the power minus 1. Here it is associated with z to the power minus n minus 1. So now z to the power minus n appears along with 1. So this is the general formula. For the example, we had z to the power minus 2 h mean of 1 by z. Here we have z to the power minus n a min of 1 by z star. And we can conclude that the system a max by a min is all pass, because you can write any h of z as equal to product of H min into all pass. So with this closing comments, we will close this chapter and move on to the next chapter, which is sampling. So a chapter which connects continuous time signals to discrete time signals is the chapter on sampling. So we'll look at some concepts of sampling and we'll go into multi-rate systems. Is this done? Shall I go to the next chapter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just one more slide and then I'll go. Just one more slide. So, like, why do we need to do this analysis of minimum phase and all pass and maximum phase? So, we want to build what is called an equalizer system. So, in many applications, magnitude and phase of a signal are distorted when it passes through a system H of Z. So, we want to invert it. So, we were talking about invertibility of systems and we discussed minimum phase systems. So we can cascade an equalizer with H of Z. An equalizer is basically inverse of H of Z. So the output of the combined system will be distortionless if H of Z into H equalizer of Z is equal to G into Z to the power minus ND. So G is just a scaling and Z to the power minus ND will introduce a constant lag. So the equalizer system can be built as G into Z to the power minus ND by H of Z is causal and stable if H of Z is minimum phase. This is important. So if you want to build an equalizer system, which is a inverse system, which it has to be a causal and stable system only if H of Z is inverse is minimum phase. And if H of Z is non-minimum phase, then we use the equalizer like this, where H min is obtained by writing the product as H of Z is equal to H min into all pass. So you divide H of Z by all pass, you will get H min of Z. So you are going to use here H min of Z, where H min of Z is derived from H of Z like this. So the overall system is given like this. So this is your final slide in this chapter. We'll go into the next chapter now. I suggest that all of you go through this chapter very carefully and look at the concepts one by one, because you have so many ideas in this discussed in this chapter. Once you are done, please let me know. Okay, is it fine? Just you have to find out the notion of an equalizer. What is an equalizer? Okay, you will talk about echo cancellation. You'll talk about many kinds of systems which are inverse systems. So in telephone systems, you have the common system which is called an noise cancellation system or the echo cancellation system. So those are inverse systems. Okay, is this fine? Shall I stop?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then let us start another chapter. Are you able to see this slide? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
So all of you must be familiar with this chapter, but in DSP we study a little bit more than what we study in signals and systems. So let me start from basics. Okay. So we are going to talk about sampling a continuous time signal, which is band limited, and it is band limited such that its spectrum extends from 0 to B hertz. Okay. So if you see the book by Lathi, BP Lathi, then he gives this idea of sampling a band limited signal. Okay. Sampling is also, there is a sampling theorem for passband signals also. Have you come across the band pass sampling theorem, everyone? Anyone? Have you heard about the band pass sampling theorem? Anyone? Yes or no? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So anyone has studied band pass sampling? So I
No.
presume, yeah, I presume no, right? Okay. If possible, I'll teach you that band pass sampling. So what we are discussing right now is baseband signal, which is band limited. Please make a note of this. So whenever you discuss sampling theorem, the Nyquist sampling theorem, or so you are actually discussing a baseband sampling uh, theorem. So signal is band limited to B hertz, or if you use the omega notation, then 2 pi b radians, and it is located such that the spectrum is located around the origin. That is, it is baseband. It is not centered at some frequency here. So you have come across modulation, right? So you take a baseband signal and you modulate it and you put the spectrum at some carrier frequency. So that is FC. So the spectrum will be modulated to FC. That means the baseband signal will be hitched, or it will be riding a carrier signal, and the spectrum will be centered around FC. It will be FC plus B hertz and minus B hertz. So we are not discussing sampling those kind of signals. We are only discussing sampling baseband signals where the spectrum is centered around the origin. Please make a note of all whatever I'm saying. So the sampling theorem says, or rather it states that it is possible to reconstruct back the continuous time version of the signal from the discrete samples taken uniformly at a rate r greater than 2b hertz or 2b samples per second. So the minimum sampling frequency should be fs equal to 2b hertz. So it just specifies the minimum sampling rate assuming uniform sampling of a continuous time baseband signal. So that is the idea of the sampling theorem. So this is the comb function. So this is the uh, Dirac delta impulse stream. We are talking about continuous time. So this is the Dirac delta impulse stream. So here you have delta subscript Ts of t. Okay. Are you able to see the slide, or shall I zoom it? Should I zoom it? Is this clear?
So make it full screen.
Full screen, will it work? I don't know. Is it visible in full screen?
Yes, sir.
Everyone, can you see?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to read that subscript TS here? Okay, so this is a periodic signal. This is an impulse train. So for this periodic signal, you can take the Fourier series. Okay, and you can express this periodic signal like this here. Okay, where omega s is equal to 2 pi by Ts, or is equal to 2 pi into Fs. And Fs is equal to 2b hertz. Now this is your continuous time signal g of t. So in the time domain, you are multiplying g of t with this impulse train delta subscript ts of t. So if you multiply g of t with that, you are going to get a signal which is denoted here as g tilde of t. Can you see this? This discrete signal which is shown here is g tilde of t. It is derived from g of t by multiplying the delta ts t signal impulse train with g of t. If you multiply, you are in the time domain, you are doing a convolution in the frequency domain. So here you see there is something called g tilde of omega. So this g tilde of omega has multiple spectra. It is obtained by taking the convolution of the spectrum here with the spectrum of this impulse train. So let me go to the slide. So you see that there is a spectrum replication. This is what happens when you sample a continuous time signal by using an impulse train. So the impulse train has this Fourier series, and you are doing a convolution in the frequency domain of the spectrum of g of t with this spectrum. So if you see here, g tilde of t is equal to g of t into delta tst. This is multiplication in the time domain. So you are multiplying term by term g of t with the Fourier series of delta ts of t, and you have to now go to the Fourier domain. So you take the Fourier transform of the right hand side term by term. So then you will get g tilde of omega, which is equal to 1 by ts summation g of omega minus n omega s. So this is a spectrum replication. This formula is giving you spectrum replication, infinite spectrum replication. N goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. So for n is equal to 0, it is g of omega. For n equal to 1, it is g of omega minus omega s. That means you get this guy here. For n equal to 2, it is g of omega minus 2 omega s. You get it here. So spectrum is replicated around omega s, okay, or fs. Sorry. So by multiplying in the time domain, you are doing convolution in the frequency domain, convolution of the spectrum of the original signal, continuous time signal, and the spectrum of the impulse train. So the spectrum of the impulse train is given in the previous equation here, and you have the spectrum of the original signal as g of omega. So you are doing the convolution in the frequency domain. So this is taking the term by term Fourier transform on the right hand side, and you will be able to recover back g of t from g tilde of t. That means g tilde of t is a discrete version of g of t. So you will be able to recover g of t from g tilde of t if you respect some condition on the sampling. That means if fs is greater than 2b, or the sampling period is less than 1 by 2b. So if you see this particular graph or this plot, the two spectra are separated only when omega s is or fs is greater than 2b. Okay. So here omega s, you have to see that this chap here, this is fs minus b. So fs minus b has to be greater than fs plus b. If you bring that condition, it has to be greater than b. Okay, 0 plus b. So fs minus b has to be greater than b. So if you put that condition, then you get fs greater than 2b. Is this clear? Is this okay? Okay. This condition is called the Nyquist rate. So as long as the sampling frequency fs is greater than twice the signal bandwidth, that is b in hertz, then g tilde of omega will contain non-overlapping repetitions of g of omega. When this is true, then g of t can be recovered from g tilde of t by passing the sampled signal g tilde of t through an ideal low-pass filter of bandwidth b hertz. That means you are supposed to isolate only this part of the spectrum from the replicated spectrum. So you have to pass this signal in the frequency domain through an ideal low-pass filter, which will cut out only this spectrum and will eliminate all the infinite replications. So we'll pass the sampled signal g tilde of t through an ideal low-pass filter of bandwidth b hertz, and the minimum sampling rate fs should be equal to 2b to recover gt from its samples g tilde of t. This is the Nyquist rate, and the corresponding sampling interval is called the Nyquist interval. So what we do is we use this low-pass filter, which is given as a rectangular function or a rect function with omega by 4 pi b. This is notation in omega. So if you see, the earlier thing was 2 pi b here, 2 pi b radians, 2b hertz and 2 pi b radians. So it is omega by 4 pi b, a rect of omega by 4 pi b. That should be the transfer function of the filter, the low-pass filter. So this is the frequency domain, the response of the low-pass filter. So if you look at it in the time domain, it will be a sinc function. So like we are going to analyze that case. We are first going to do what is called a zero order hold uh, reconstruction. So around g tilde of t at every sample, we are going to put a zero order hold like this. I think all of you must have studied a RC filter for doing a zero order hold, right? All of you must have seen that. How to do a zero order hold, demodulation of amplitude modulated signal. All of you have studied that. How would you demodulate? The simplest demodulation technique of an amplitude modulated wave, AM signal. How will you demodulate it? You will track the envelope of the AM wave by passing it through an RC filter, through an RC circuit. This RC circuit will do a zero order hold. So we are going to reconstruct, or we are going to interpolate the continuous time signal from the samples g tilde of t by using zero order hold. So this is supposed to be your ideal interpolation filter. Okay, rect of omega by 4 pi b, or Ts into rect of omega by 4 pi b, but you will have an approximation of that, which is the sink. So this is mod of h of omega. So you can write the output signal y of t as g of kts into rect of t by ts. You see here, this is rect of t by ts. So you are multiplying g of t or g of kt with rect of t by ts to get y of t. This is a zero order hold interpolation that you are doing. And later on we will derive what is called the Shannon-Whittaker formula, or the interpolation formula, the ideal interpolation formula using sinc functions. So this is a zero order hold interpolation. So y of t is reconstructed as summation g of kts into rect of t by ts. This is a zero order hold. So the filter output will be a staircase approximation of g of t. So this filter is a crude form of interpolation, and the transfer function of this filter h of omega is the Fourier transform of the impulse response of rect of t by ts. So if you assume ts is equal to 1 by 2b, then you can get your h of t of the zero order hold filter as rect of 2bt and h of omega like this. So the amplitude response mod of h of omega is shown here. This is a sinc function that is shown here. Okay, it is mod of h of omega. This is the ideal interpolation filter. Sorry. So the ideal interpolation is this guy, but you are actually doing an interpolation with this guy. So you are going to land up with a very crude staircase approximation of the original signal. Okay. So this filter is also known as the zero order hold filter. This gives a poor approximation of the ideal low pass filter. So you want an ideal low pass filter, Ts into rect of omega by 4 pi b. This one. This one. You want this low pass filter. But what you have achieved by doing a zero order hold is a spread out sinc function. Are you able to understand what I'm saying here, everyone? So we can't use a zero order hold filter. We need an ideal low pass filter for exact interpolation. So ideal interpolation. I will just stop here. We are going to use ideal interpolation and derive the Shannon-Whittaker formula for finding g of t from the samples of g of tilde of t. Is this clear, whatever I have just discussed? Do you want me to go on, everyone? Do you want me to discuss this? I'm not hearing anyone.
Sir, this is in the textbook, this chapter.
This is from a different textbook.
So
This is
which
from
one?
BP Lathi. This is from BP Lathi. BP Lathi's text gives a fantastic description of sampling. It is not there in any textbook. Okay, yeah, I am teaching from a combination of textbooks. So this part, whatever I am teaching, is not there in many textbooks. Zero order hold interpolation. Why it doesn't work out? Okay, have you studied from in your signals and systems course? Anyone? Has anyone taught you why zero order hold doesn't give you proper signal? Only BP Lathi explains properly. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So we should not be doing, yeah, anyone? So have you understood whatever I just discussed? So we want the ideal interpolation, or we want a perfect reconstruction of g of t, which is continuous time from the samples of g tilde of t from the discrete samples. So we have shown earlier that if you use zero order hold, then you will be landing up with this interpolation signal, which is sinc function, which is not proper. You need something like this, the ideal interpolation filter. So in the frequency domain, you are landing up with something like this. That is going to give you a poor reconstruction of the original signal. Okay. So let me now go to ideal interpolation. So the ideal interpolation filter transfer function is shown here. So this is Ts into rect of omega by 4 pi b, correct? So the impulse response of this filter is this sinc function, where the zero crossings are at 1 by 2b. So the impulse response of the original low pass filter, with which you are supposed to filter out the infinite replica spectra, is this impulse response. That is 2bts into sinc of 2 pi bt. If you assume Nyquist sampling rate as Ts equal to 1 by 2b, then you get a simplified version h of t as sinc of 2 pi bt. So this will have zero crossings at 1 by 2b. So this amplitude will become equal to 1. So here the amplitude is 1. So with this interpolation, we will be able to achieve perfect interpolation from the samples. So h of t is shown in the previous slide. So h of t is equal to 0 at all Nyquist sampling instants, t equal to plus minus n to b, except at t equal to 0. This is very interesting. You see, at all other places, that is plus minus n by 2b, h of t is equal to 0, but h of t is not equal to 0 at origin. So when the sampled signal g tilde of t is applied at the input of this filter, so the corresponding, so what is happening here? So you are trying to take out this particular spectra. Okay, are you able to see my cursor, everyone? Can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
So you are trying to do an ideal low pass filtering of this spectrum only. You are given this guy. You are given this guy. Okay. You are given discrete samples of g of t. You are given g tilde of t. G tilde of t has spectra which is infinite replica of the baseband spectra. Now you are going to use a single ideal low pass filter to take out this spectrum which is centered at the origin, which is the original spectrum of g of t. This is the original spectrum of g of t. Okay. So to do that, you are supposed to use the ideal interpolation filter, which is this guy. So when the sample signal g tilde of t is applied at the input of this filter, so g tilde of t is in the frequency domain an infinite spectra. The output will be g of t, which in the frequency domain will be a single spectrum, baseband spectrum. So sample signal g of tilde of t is applied to an ideal low pass filter, then you will get g of t. Each sample in g tilde of t being an impulse will generate a sinc pulse of height equal to the strength of the sample. So it will be generating something like this. So you see the first sample here will generate single sinc function. So it will be a weighted sinc function weighted by this magnitude of the Dirac impulse. So you have an impulse stream, continuous time impulse stream, continuous time Dirac delta impulse stream, whose Fourier series I have already shown you. This is a periodic impulse stream. Period is ds. So now you have a situation where you have sampled that g of t with this Dirac delta impulse stream. So each sample is actually a impulse. So each impulse in g tilde of t being an impulse will generate a sinc pulse of height equal to the strength of the sample. So this is the strength of the sample, g of k into ts. And the process is identical except to the previous thing, except that you have a sinc pulse instead of a gate pulse. So in the earlier case, you are trying to interpolate using these gate pulses. Okay, this is a zero order hold. You are trying to interpolate using gate pulses, but now you no longer have these gate pulses, you have sinc functions. Okay? So you have these sinc functions. And if you see the contribution of one sinc will disappear at the location of the next impulse or the next sample. So each sinc will contribute only once. This is important. So addition of the sinc pulses generated by all the samples results in g of t, and the kth sample of the input g tilde of t is the impulse g of kts into delta of t minus kts, and the filter output of this impulse is g of kts into h of t minus kts. So this will lead to the Shannon-Whittaker interpolation formula. So each of these sinc functions is a basis. Okay, you might have studied vector spaces, everyone, right? You know what are basis vectors. You know what is ijk, everyone? Can you write a vector in 3D using ijk? Is it not? Yes or no?
So need to revise them again.
Revise what? You have a vector A. You can write it in terms of ijk, na? You can.
Yeah, like
You can
that part
a,
is known. Like the vector calculus and all is known.
So the similar thing is happening here. So you are taking sinc functions, which are bases. Okay. And these sinc functions are getting multiplied by the projection of the signal onto the sinc function. Those projections are g of kts. You are adding weighted sinc functions in a single summation to get hold of g of t. That is what is happening here. Just like you can write a vector in terms of its projection onto ijk. So you have a vector x, its projection on I is a. We have a vector, so same vector projects on the j basis as b and on k as c. Then you can write x as equal to a into I plus b into j plus c into k. Is it not? You can write it like that. So I, j, k are called basis vectors in vector space. Similarly, here the sinc functions are also basis functions. You are able to write g of t from the projections of g of t onto the individual sinks. All this explanation is not there in any other textbook, Baba. Please open BP Lathi. Okay, so this is the idea. So what is this H here? H is this guy. Okay. This is your ideal low pass filter with which you are supposed to filter that infinite spectra. The infinite spectra corresponds to the Fourier transform of the sampled signal. And this is your H of t of the low pass filter with which you are going to sample the spectra, infinite spectra. So this is the H. So you have this H as the sinc function, and you are going to use this formula. This formula is called the Shannon-Whittaker formula, and it is also called the ideal interpolation formula. With this slide, I will stop today. I hope everyone has been taught this thing in Signals and Systems course for the UG. For the MTechs, I don't know whether you have been taught or not, but I hope for the UG they would have been taught this. Have you been told that this formula is called the Shannon-Whittaker formula? Anyone? No? What?
No.
No? अरे बाप रे, open Wikipedia, study from Wikipedia. ठीक है? You have fantastic web pages in Wikipedia on sampling. So, like, if you can get hold of BP Lathi, you can study from there also. It is a very good chapter in BP Lathi on sampling. So once you have written this down, let me know. We will close for today. So after this whatever chapter sampling, I think I will cover one more chapter, and I don't know whether I will have time for filter design or not. I have to check. So those who are interested in learning filter design, please let me know. I'll have to take some extra classes because I don't know how much time I have. I will have time up to 18th November only. So I have to cover this chapter on sampling, then cover DFT. And while I cover DFT, FFT comes along with it. So FFT is not a separate chapter. So DFT plus FFT is a single chapter. That I will definitely cover. But if you want filter design also, then you let me know. Then I'll find time for that. Okay, so shall I stop here, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.